on this channel, I've said plenty of times when I've spoken about a rumour or read some of the news, said I don't believe this, I think this is a load of rubbish, that hopefully when I say now that I believe what I'm about to tell you next is true, that, hopefully I've got a bit of credit in the bank with you, basically. What I'm about to talk about, as you'll have seen from the title, is Declan Rice. Now, let me tell you the story as I understand it, and I've had a pretty good steer on it up to now. David Moyes has recently instructed West Ham, or the owners, the board, whatever, to up what they were offering to Declan Rice. Now, as I understand it, there was a bit of a stalemate before them. And now Declan Rice, in case you don't know, has got a year left on his contract with an option for another 2. We had gone in and I think we'd had 2 bids rejected, or 2 offers of contracts rejected by Declan Rice and his team. And then there was a load of stories that came out through some journalists, I think with the Telegraph, who were quite close to Declan and his team, to say, no, look, we've turned down the contracts. We're not going to sign them. There's no point in. You've got the indication. There's no point going back for a third. Apparently, and we'll never know precisely what the figures are, but apparently we were willing to go as high as 150 grand a week. Now, David Moyes has very recently turned around to the board and said, you've got to tie this guy down. Offer him 200 grand a week. But apparently, that's been turned down, or it was suggested, look, there's no point coming to us with that offer. We're not going to sign it. The messaging coming from Declan and his team is we don't really care about the money. All we care about is being ambitious. Now, as a result of that, I think the club were quite keen to get some clarity on the situation. Let's put that out there. So they've come back and they've said, look, everything with Declan is perfectly amicable. Basically, we've told Declan that we're not going to sell him for another 12 months at least. Now, that's not to say he's up for sale. I'm very keen that nobody watches and think he's up for sale in 12 months. But I think Declan's team said, well, we're not going to sign a new contract. I think the club have turned around and said, well, we're not going to sell you in this upcoming window. Now, apparently, Declan has said, I don't want to sign because I want to go and win things. Ambition is important to me. But he's not kicking up a stink. I think he's apparently said, okay, you want to keep me around? Look, you've got me tied down. I've got 3 years on the contract. It's a contract. I signed it. Now, I'm really impressed with Declan on this because he's losing a lot of money. Look, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure he earns a lot of money. I'm pretty sure he's got a nice car, nice house, and he's able to do all the things he wants to in life. But let's be fair, he's of the value that he should be earning, 200 grand a week plus, because he's a top player, and that's what top players like him are earning. And I've looked at a little bit of the fallout of this, because this news sort of broke yesterday, and as I said, there was loads of news yesterday with the Diop injury and whatnot, and I wanted a little bit of time to digest this. And I actually don't mind this at all, because what I think this does is, this is actually what I wanted to happen, because I feel this is giving the club very, very clear messaging, not just the club, but David Moyes as well, which is, I want to win things. I think it's basically him saying, look, prove to me in 12... I'm not signing a contract. Prove to me in 12 months that we're ambitious and we can win things, and I'll sign. Has he said that? No. I don't want to put words into his mouth. But we know he loves the club. We know he has an affection towards the fans. This much is clear. I think he's... From everything I've ever heard about his parents, they're good eggs. They're good people. And clearly they're a good family. But ambition is his number one thing. I think it just sends a message to the board and sends a message to David Moyes, sort it out now. So we've heard rumours in the last, since Kretinsky came in, how much money was available. The truth of the matter is, if you take the rumours aside, the only facts we've got are since Kretinsky came in, no money's been spent. So we still have to rely on rumour, on supposition, on declarations of intent to try and work out. But if we take the rumours, it is that we have about 150 million to spend. Now, I don't know if that's true. I really don't, but I'm going to take that, and I would suggest that we would need to spend at least that if what we want to do is keep Declan Rice happy. The one thing I am sort of clear about, and I think initially I read it as bad news, and actually this isn't too bad a news at all, because actually the messaging from both people, in terms of both camps, in terms of the club and Declan Rice, that I wanted to hear. Which is, I'm pleased to hear that the club don't just want to cash in on him. That actually say, no, you're not going anywhere. I'm pleased that David Moyes is saying, no, I want to keep him here. All that messaging is good. I think the messaging from Declan is good as well, because it may well be the kick up the arse that the club and the management need. There's no uncertainty in what he's saying. Compete. Now, I want to win things. So I suggest if they got 150 million, they go and spend it. And I think, I don't want to backtrack too much and be overly critical of Moyes, because I think what he's done is remarkable. But it takes me back to a couple of videos I did when it was clear that we weren't going to sign anyone in January. And it was a case of I was saying, I want Moyes to be ambitious. Do you remember me saying that? I was saying I didn't think that everyone else was going to buy into his 3 or 4 year plan. And that whilst he was taking his time over players, there'll be other players that are here now that are going to think, look, I can't wait and do this. We needed to show ambition then. And by us not winning anything this season, and by the way, it's still all to play for. All right, look, there were injuries, it ain't looking good, but it's still all to play for. I did think, hold on, Moyes, you're missing a trick here. Not just because you've got this long-term plan, not just because you don't want to bring the players in, but actually is to send a message to the players you do want to keep, like Rice and like Bowen, by showing them that you're going to spend this season, also indicates you're going to spend next season. You put trophies in there. There's a chance they stay. He wants to win things. It's as simple as that. And I actually quite like that David Moyes would have turned around to the board, said, give him 200 grand a week. The board would have turned around to Declan and his team, said, look, we'll give you 200 grand a week. And they've turned around and said no. Because the messaging actually comes back to David Moyes. He ain't going to sign it. Well, why not? Because he wants to win things. Right. Well, we better get a move on then. And we better be really, really serious in our intention to buy players. We're never going to spend as much as the very biggest clubs. Manchester United, we want to not spend as much as Manchester United this summer. I've got to say, though, possibly we don't need to, because they are in complete and utter disarray. They really are. And they've lost. They got a whooping last night, again, from Liverpool. Look, we've got no defence at the moment. But maybe they'll work something out. Maybe there'll be some tactical shift that we discussed yesterday. Maybe, just maybe, between now and the end of the season, we get more points than Man United. If we get more points than Man United and Wolves, then we're in Europe and we're above Man United. Man United can't buy Declan this summer anyway. We've discussed this. Chelsea don't even know whether they're coming or going at the moment. It looks like all Man City's money is tied up in a bid for Haaland. And Liverpool, we just never got the impression that Liverpool are in for Declan Rice or could afford Declan Rice. I think actually Declan Rice staying for another 12 months suits Declan Rice, because he's not going to get the move to a club that would definitely win things, unless he wants to go abroad, that is. And I think it sort of suits us as well. But at 150 million, well, we've actually got the core of a good team. And I don't think it takes much. And here's my belief about David Moyes. I think David Moyes is such a good manager that I don't think that David Moyes needs to spend as much money as Man United, for example, to compete with Man United. I think he can do it with a smaller squad, just albeit not as small a squad as we have. So 150 million, without going into the players precisely, and I'm going to really simplify this. And it's not going to be like this, but I am going to simplify it. What can we do if it is 150 million? And we need to now, by the way, because the messaging is, basically, it goes back to the board. Right, if we don't do it, we're going to lose him. We are going to lose him. And David Moyes will be saying, don't you dare lose him. Okay, let's show the ambition. That puts the pressure on the board, but the board can turn around to David Moyes and say, well, also you make your decisions as well. You buy these players. I think we did. I think basically we should have. If what David Moyes wanted was Núñez, now I'm not convinced, but it's not about me. David Moyes is a better judge of a player than I bloody am. That much is clear. Then we should have just paid the 64 million or whatever it was that Benfica wanted. And the same with Rafinha, whether or not we could or should have bought him, whether we should have bid for him, go and pay the money that makes it tempting. If David Moyes has highlighted his players, go and get them. Not fifth or sixth down his list. 150 million? What does that give them? See, it's not just about us sending ambition. Well, I say ambitious intent and ambitious messaging to Declan Rice, about sending it to someone like Jesse Lingard as well. Because if Jesse Lingard is umming and erring I'm in an R-in about whether to join us or whether to join clearly an ambitious club like Newcastle. Actually, we need to show ambition to him as well, because that's a part of the 150 million we don't have to spend. Now, don't get me wrong, there's agents' fees involved. There's going to be a signing-on fee. However, you'd like to think that that money can be recouped by the wages that we're saving with people like Yarmolenko and so on and so forth. So I think actually you can get a top quality player, and Jesse Lingard is a top quality player, without dipping in to the 150 million. I think you can go and get one of these centre backs. Since we are going to need one. And it doesn't matter whether you think it's Tarkowski or anybody else. There are centre-backs available on free transfers. In fact, there's quite a lot of players available on free transfers. If you can get a couple of top-quality players in on free transfers, if you can get a loan, and if you can do something like that, if you can get your goalkeeper situation sorted out, then what it actually leaves you with 150 million, the three players, £350 million players. Now, I understand it might not be quite the same as that. One of them might be 50 million, one might be 60, one might be 40. It might be that you spend 30 million on a fullback or whatever. You get what I'm saying. But I think out of that 150 million, you buy 3 quality players. 3 absolute quality players, and you bring in your centre-back, and you bring in Lingard on a free. I think then, with basically what I'm saying is, I'm talking about 5 players that can go into that first team. With 5 players that can go into that first team, and then supplement and complement people like Zuma, people like Rice, then I think you've got a very, very good team indeed. You've got to keep Rice, you've got to keep Bowen. I think we do become a force to be reckoned with. I think we go into every game, and bearing in mind the teams we've beaten this season, with a real chance of winning it. And I think if we can do that, say winning it, I don't know what it is, it might be a cup. I don't think we have to win the Premier League, by the way, to keep Declan Rice. I think if we win a cup and we get Champions League, and we look like, say, halfway through the season, we are comfortably in the top 4, then I think at that point, Rice will, he may well be persuaded. Maybe he'll wait until the end of the season. But here's the point. I think the club have done the right thing here. We are much better off now is keeping Rice, because you'll still get 150 million for him when he's got 2 years left on his contract. That's fine. With a year left on his contract, will you? No. I've said this before. But you would probably still get 80, 90 million for him with a year left on his contract, because at that point there would be a bidding war. Because at that point Liverpool would probably say, actually, if he's 90 million, we might take him. Or whatever, if he's 80 million, we might take him. Everyone's in. All the top clubs are in at 80 million. What's the benefit of that? Have you lost money? Well, not really. It didn't cost you anything. But what it's given you is 2 years to build on the team and have him there, and he's a captain. Captain's not easy to replace, by the way. And I would argue that a season or two of Declan Rice is absolutely worth whatever his depreciation and his value would be. I think it's interesting. I'm actually quite pleased. Don't get me wrong, Declan Rice videos are good for Hammers Chat business. I'm not going to lie to you. Okay, you get good clicks of a Declan Rice video. That being said, I've actually quite enjoyed putting it to bed for a while and sort of, as I say, I believe there's clarity in this. So with this being the case, I believe that's the case. I believe Declan Rice wants to win things. I believe he's going to take a very close look at the club and basically saying, show me your... He's not saying show me the money. He's saying show me your ambition. I believe that the club have got the messaging. David Moyes has got the messaging. And I believe the club won't sell him. I may well be wrong. I know there'll be people in these comments and say, no, they're just going to cash in. They're tight owners. They're stingy owners. They're just going to... whatever, bleed the asset strip, bleed the club dry. I don't believe that to be the case, by the way. And in this instance, I'm talking about. I'm not saying they haven't taken money and interest payments and loans before, clearly, and all that stuff. We know all that. So I mean, in this instance, with Moyes, there's 2 other dynamics. It's not just Gold and Sullivan. There's all in. There's Gold, Sullivan, Kretinsky, and there's David Moyes. What's the point in getting 150 million and sort of divvying it up? Kretinsky's just paid a load of money. Kretinsky didn't pay all that money just so as he could get, a dividend of 20, 30 million. That's not what he's in it for. I think they want to remain competitive. I think they want to be competitive. I think they've had a shot across the bows. I think there's a lot of messaging that goes out from the club. Oh, we are ambitious. David Moyes, I am building something. I think what Declan Rice has done has turned around and said, you ain't ambitious enough and your project ain't quick enough. You want to keep me? Get moving. Show me your ambition. Bring in some players, and do you know what? I think if it forces the club to move more quickly, it forces David Moyes to move more quickly. I actually think that as much as initially it wasn't a great story and it felt a bit crap as a West Ham fan, I think I think Declan Rice may well have been wanting exactly what the West Ham fans have wanted, and I think Declan Rice, by saying, it's a bit weird saying this, but by not signing the contract, is probably doing us a massive favour.